been a long old stint without the show. I'm sure all of our diehard fans missed us, which so many out there. But yeah, it's been a long old time. Since that time, Simple has come back and left again in CS.
Yeah.
I went to China and came back. Sadly, not in time for the major. Quite a while before the major, actually.
Mhm.
Um, my predictions about Vitality have not come fruitful at all. They've bombed every chance that they've had in like competitive series and finals. G2's won another tournament, which very impressive to be honest. I still wasn't majorly convinced by them, but I am again convinced by Monacy. Um, Sad that Nico thing's happening now. I think that's pretty much confirmed. So that's gonna be interesting in the follow up to the major. But speaking of the major, that is what is in front of us. That's why we've come back after our stint away. No, it's not really. We've just been busy and we recorded an episode that we never released because it was out of date by the time I finished editing it. So um, yeah, well, we're back regardless. Here to talk about the major. Skipped over the RMRs because, to be honest, I didn't have a lot to say on a lot of the teams going through the RMRs. I'm not sure you would have either. I kind of knew more from secondhand sources than I knew myself, and in that sense, there wasn't much need to talk about it, I think. But here we are. We've got to the opening stage of the major. Some of the initial matches have been already played because of the time difference for us, but we wanted to comment and continue talking about it. So maybe first of all, we just highlight each of our pick'ems. So for myself, I had Liquid and Mongols go 3-0. I had Furia, Fnatic, Big, Virtus Pro, Passion UA, and Complexity going through. Gotta laugh at Complexity, or you'll cry. And then in the O3 category, I had FlyQuest and Rare Atom. How about you, Ted?
All right. Yeah. Well, I agree with you on the Mongols Liquid. We both have those going 3-0, and based off of how the matches are going to come in the next few days or later tonight for us,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that at least one of those is going to be an easy point for us. Wild situation if FlyQuest and Gamer Legion both win those games,
that would
and
be crazy. Yeah, I mean, it would throw our
qualify.
pick'ems off like insanely, but
It would ruin everyone's pick'ems, I think.
probably.
Mongols is one of the best. Like I think 90% of people have Mongols in their 3-0 category.
Yeah.
And then we have pretty similar second bracket or second making it through. I've got Complexity, Furia, Pain, Big, VP, and Fnatic.
Okay.
Um, Originally I had Cloud9 instead of Fnatic, but Blame F just made that decision for me.
Yeah, I mean, he was unbelievable at the RMR, to be honest. Actually,
So
unbelievable.
it was a coin flip for me on that one, but I believed at the time the game that they could make it through, and they still potentially could, but they're gonna have to do it the long way.
Yeah,
And then for my 0 and 3, I have Wildcard and Rare Atom, and
very fair.
I am going to be hate watching the Rare Atom Fnatic game and just heavily rooting for Fnatic. I want Blame F to stomp them.
True, true. I mean for both sides I want Fnatic to beat the Rare Atom team for my O3 and for my prediction of Fnatic getting through 3-1, 3-2. So let's maybe talk about some of the differences maybe first, and then maybe we'll go into some matchups coming up or matchups that have already been played. So initially, the first thing that's different for us is I think I have Passion UA where you have who was it now?
I've got Complexity, Furia, Pain, Big, BP, and Fnatic.
Pain. So you
Yeah.
I've got Passion UA and you got Pain. I think I think Passion UA was a bit of a wild pick for me. I kind of based it on what I'd seen at the RMR. Also, like so basically they beat the two tier two teams that people thought were going to be good, which I think was Sangal and I think was forgetting blanking. I'll check, but essentially they beat the tier two teams that people were hyping up, in my opinion, and they looked very clean doing it. Um, Sorry, I'm just checking who they beat. They also beat Spirit. Actually, no, they
Yeah.
did. Oh, sorry, I got this wrong. They didn't beat Sangal. They beat Spirit. They beat Virtus Pro. I mean, Virtus Pro is in this section of it. They also beat Astralis 2-0. I think it's a fairly legit run of teams that they took on. I mean, two best of ones, of course. Took Astralis in a best of three, but they had a stand-in for this major. Obviously, it's not the cleanest look, but they've have a lot of hours played recently. They've been very active in the tier two circuit. They've been a team for a long time. And I think they're now hitting their peak, and this is everything for them, right? I mean, maybe it's already done for them in that sense, and getting to the major was maybe their goal. But in that sense, it's also kind of a bit of pressure off. And I think if I had to hedge my bets on a team that people won't expect to be good, that might be. I think Passion UA has a really good chance to prove that to us. I think they're my outside pick. Now I'm regretting my complexity pick. I think I was really on the border. I was actually more confident in Passion UA than I was in complexity, given that they had a really shaky time in the RMR. Like they should be coming in and showing everyone that they're one of the top 20 teams, a top dog in this situation, and they look flat as hell in this section of the major. They're already 0-2. So I'm regretting my pick there. And the other different pick that we went for was I picked out FlyQuest to be my 0-3. I think you picked out Wildcard. Now, Wildcard was a team that I considered. I don't really know why I didn't pick them, to be fair. Like, I don't really believe in Stanislaw and this lineup that they've got going up. They've got a lot of rookie players and things like that. I don't necessarily think there was that much to them. It was quite impressive that they made it through at the RMR at all, to be honest. And I guess I basically pitched it on the Asian scene is weaker than the American scene, was essentially the premise on which I picked Wildcard. Sorry, not Wildcard. Fucking it all up today. Was the premise I picked FlyQuest on. So it's not turning out great for me. They won both of their opening matches against Big and Complexity, both teams that I picked to go through it in front of them. But I think that was a little bit of an unexpected result. I would have thought Big would be quite prepared in an opening round matchup against FlyQuest, but they somehow bottle it after a really good performance at the RMR. And then Complexity, I could have guessed they were going to not be that great, but I still would have bet on Elige personally. It's a pity that he didn't come through in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I think that covers just about the differences. Where do you want to go in talking about the games and the teams here?
Well, there's a few games that just didn't go the way I expected them to go. Like, right away, VP losing to MIBR really kind of put their chances in turmoil, and I've obviously got them going through, so
Yeah.
I really want. I was kind of betting on them beating MIBR in a best of one,
Yeah.
just because I think James a pretty solid IGL. I don't think he's like world's greatest or anything like that, but I think he can lead a team. He can make nice decisions. And Electronic at his peak was so good that I could never forget that, and I could never write him off really.
I
Like,
mean, like, look, I'm with you. I mean, I picked them to go through myself. But B, I think you could easily pick this team on player strength alone, and you should have the expectation that they can make it through here. Yeah, it's a bit worrying. Like, I would say they also looked pretty bad at the RMR, and I was pretty hesitant to pick them again. But I also was swayed by the history, the name value of this team, um, and
yeah,
just I guess some sort of belief that they can't really be this bad all of the time. A little
I
bit
believe that
worried, but yeah,
I believe their poor performance in the RMR would have like been the slap in the face that they needed. I felt like maybe Jame and Electronic would have like brought the team together and been like, guys, this isn't good enough, and just like really stepped up their game coming in, because the caliber of players that they have versus the caliber of teams in this section of the tournament,
shouldn't even be
like
close. I mean, and like
they should
debatably,
be getting
yeah,
through. They
debatably
could
they
lose.
should be top
Yeah.
two in this
Mhm.
group, right? Because Liquid is the other top team. Mongols is like a good team that performs well, but you would expect that Virtus Pro with the players they have should be better than that team. But that it's surprising because they're not. And to be honest, the thing about the slap in the face, I think a little bit for me, like I wasn't necessarily expecting a slap in the face because I think they've been having nothing but slaps in the face, if you know what I mean. Like they haven't had a good run in ages. I don't think they've ever really delivered on anything close to what this lineup really demands with the players that they have and the points in their careers that they're at. So I think they've had nothing much like a Falcons, but on maybe a less extreme version. they've had a million slaps to the face, and if they're not coming through, they're not coming through. I think for myself, I would say I'm picking purely on player strength. Like I have to believe Electronic is better than fucking Alistair or whatever the fuck on FlyQuest. You know, like they're not the same roles, but you know the caliber of players he's playing against dictates that I have to pick into Electronic, even just based on history. Even though recent form isn't that great, um, so yeah, I'm with you. I think to be fair, they're 1-1. It's not all over at all yet. They got lives, and more importantly, they got BO3s to play still coming up. Um, so their next matchup is against Big. It's a very interesting one. I've obviously got Big to go through as well, so that's an unfortunate game, but I guess it's good for me either way, in a way as well.
Can't
Um,
lose.
so
Can't win either though.
yeah, well, I can't win both right now, but you know maybe they both come back in the 3-2. A team I'd like to highlight maybe just as a team that I was on the fence to pick as a 3-2 team, but have kind of overperformed relative to that expectation is Gamer Legion. It's a new roster, like they only formed about 2 months ago. Um I thought it was a really good job that they got through the RMR, and definitely they looked hot in that RMR to make it through. I think in fact they are the ones that beat Sangal, if I am indeed correct. Um, Let me check that actually.
I'll be wrong again.
Uh, they beat Sinners. They beat Bet Boom. Okay, totally wrong again. God, I'm so off today. But Sinners, I think, was the team maybe I was thinking about a little bit because they are one of the best teams in Tier 2. They've won several like smaller LAN tournaments. And they play a lot of LAN tournaments in the Czech scene. I would have thought they had an advantage there, considering that this team's so young. But I don't know. Ash, the coach on Gamer Legion, pulls another miracle out of the bag and brings a half dead looking roster through the major. And he's this time I'd say it's actually looking more lively than the previous Gamer Legion. Not the one that made the finals run at Paris, because that had a lot of strong players on it and seemed to go really well. But I'd say it's a very young roster with a lot of potential talent here. Names that we might be thinking about in the future that we're kind of under the radar for us right now. So I'd say it's a really impressive lineup, all things considered. And they're 2-0 right now. So one BO3, they could be in the major. And, you know, that would be amazing for these guys, I'm sure. In terms of any other teams I'd like to highlight, I think we've already highlighted FlyQuest. Um, I think that's in terms of the unexpected category, that's probably it. I mean, Wildcard managing to take a map off Fnatic in admittedly very close fashion. I think that was a real surprise for me. As much as I thought Wildcard had a good run in the Americas RMR, I definitely thought Fnatic was a scarier team. Blame F and Matisse, the new young gun on that team, particularly look really good for me. Body's doing a okay job with the lineup. I struggle to decide how I think Body calls on that team. Crims also kind of only puts up an acceptable performance at best. It's not really anything special, to be honest. Um, and Nork, obviously, I would say he's not been amazing at this tournament, but I think he's a great pickup for Fnatic in general. Also a Swedish pickup, but I mean, at this point, that's kind of largely irrelevant. I've always thought he was a serviceable AWPer, and I thought he got really hard done by in the period where Device joined NIP and he got kicked out. Um, I think he's never truly come back since then at the form that he was when he left at the time, but I still believe in his potential. And even during the time that he was on Bleed, I thought he played quite well. So I still hope Fnatic can make it through. I'd say it's looking a bit tough for them now. They've got, I would say, a layup match for the next one in Rare Atom, but you know, 1-2 and then two best of threes, anything can happen. They could definitely, I could see a world where they get through, but I could see a world where they go up against a higher ranked team, and I think they tend to do worse in matchups like that. So anyone's guess, really. Um, any other teams you're eager to highlight here?
I think FlyQuest have overachieved, but one thing is I think Pain. Actually, I'll just briefly agree with you that the Fnatic wildcard game really just screwed me over a bit because obviously I have wildcard going 0-3,
Yeah.
so immediately wrong. And that just really threw a spanner in the works for me.
Yeah.
And I think, and then that ended up sending Fnatic down to Cloud9. And Cloud9, they're not one of the teams I had going through, but they were very close to being one of those teams.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and obviously, Cloud9 just handled them and sent them down into the 0-2 bracket, where hopefully they will be facing or just demolishing Rare Atom.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Well, I mean, I think I backed them in that matchup. I mean, honestly, Cloud Nine's also a really interesting lineup to me. They obviously picked up Heavy God
Heavy
sort of
God's really
early in
good.
the year, and he looks great. I would also say Icy, the Orpa that they've got, looks pretty good to me. I don't know where I'd place him. He probably isn't like a high ranking Orpa right now. He hasn't had the consistency in his form to even show that. And I don't necessarily think he's played super good against higher ranked opposition. So maybe he's a bit exploitable or still a little young and inexperienced in that regard. But Axile, like currently, Axile feels like the third best player in Cloud9, and to me, that's a good formula because I can't rely on Axile to be good, but I know he can have a pop off game, and there's a certain level that you could expect out of that guy if he can recover a bit more form. So if he's your third best player right now, and he has a lot of potential to be better than he is, I think this roster's got a lot of upside. I think Boomich and Inters. I mean, I think Boomich IGLs well, but he is like a human bot. Unfortunately, I mean, I think he also. What's interesting about the way he plays the game actually is I would say he's a really low econ player, so he can make kills with very little money, and I would say he often goes into low buy situations. So he can get like a bit of an economic advantage relative to his numbers for his team. So there's like a minor his stats aren't as bad as they look because he kind of plays a lot of low econ, but I'd say Inters to me is kind of inexcusable. Um, like I expected much more of him. Even though in previous Cloud9 he wasn't like a player that necessarily delivered big stats, I'd say he delivered a lot more impact. And right now I don't really even see that. Even it's just bad stats and kind of bad impact from me. From him. So it's an interesting roster to break down, but I'd say like their three upside players kind of give them a lot to work with. And Boomich isn't calling half bad either. So yeah, definitely a team I could see like a team on Fnatic's level losing to, and I could actually see maybe outcooled is kind of a big part of it. Um, so yeah, I mean, also a roster I thought about picking here, but decided against on the basis that I can't rely on Axile enough, and then Icy is an unproven metric in majors, and Heavy God I believe in, but like if I have two question marks in that sense, I wasn't going to pick into them. So um yeah, definitely a team to watch, and probably I think a team that has a good chance of getting through this stage. Um, they have a following matchup against Pain though, so you might have something to say about that.
Yeah, they should be taking. No, they're playing Complexity.
Play? What Cloud9?
Yeah.
It says they're playing Pain.
Oh, never mind. I was looking at the wrong tab. I've already chosen Pain to win that game. So yeah.
Ah, right.
Um, yeah. So Pain going up against Cloud9. Not sure exactly. Let's see. I obviously have them winning because Pain is supposed to be the best Brazilian team, and the Brazilian scene has been pretty strong at this tournament so far.
Yeah,
So on paper, they should be winning this. And yeah, Snow has looked really good. He's just a young talent, just taking heads.
definitely. I'd also say like one things I like about Pain when I watch them is Big Zero because he's the cooler, but I'd say he actually has a lot of impact relative to the fact that he is the caller. And I also think they kind of live and die by his reads and calls. So I think in that sense, maybe there's a good chance that he can outcall Boomich. I think it's actually reasonably similar in terms of calling, but I'd say Big Zero has much more ability to like take the game into his own hands if his young guys aren't really feeling it so much. He definitely needs some of them to show up here, but I actually think it's reasonably similar level between them and Cloud9. I'd say Cloud9 maybe have like less experience in important roles though, in that sense. Like Axel's very experienced, but also on a downtrend. Heavy God's medium level experience, low level experience probably, and then Icy is also very low experience, I'd say. And then, you know, I, like Pain definitely have a few of those themselves, but Big Zero can also provide impact himself. NQZ I think is also quite a good player that I usually rate, and he's been around for a couple years now. I think so. I'd say that I could definitely see a world where Pain can go through. They were definitely one of for me they were one of the strongest Brazilian teams. I think I picked Furia in the end because to me, like Furia should be able to make it through just on case Serato, and I saw Yuri was playing quite good as well in the RMR. If that can sustain, then that should already be enough. Then again, though, it's Furia; they're always liable to disappoint in the last few years. So anyone's guess, really. Again, always hard to call the majors. I feel like anything can happen. Um, yeah, is there another team you're looking to talk through here?
I was gonna do a little agreement where I think in terms of actual firepower, I think they're relatively on the same level. I think individually, one for one, like Heavy God beats anyone on Pain. However, as you said, the big Uzera actually having impact factor versus Boomich when they line up. I think that the difference in the star players of the teams, Cloud9 might win over on just the star players, but once you take the IGLs into account, Boomich's downfall and Big Uzo's up kind of match out the teams.
Yeah.
So I think it should be a contentious game. I'm obviously hoping that Pain wins because that would make me more correct. But um, I'm I'm pretty confident that they'll take this down, but I'm not going to be surprised. And honestly, if Cloud9 do make it through, as long as I do get that coin, I'll be happy to see them go through.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I used to hate watch Boomich back when he was on Navi and he was taking like trophies away from fucking G2. But I really feel bad for like the way that he ended up leaving that, and I'm happy to see him coming back because he was like a good part of the CS community and scene. Like I liked having him around. He's good personality, and I think maybe he probably shouldn't have lost all that weight because he's
I
not
mean, it
quite the
happens
same as he was
again, bro.
before.
It happened again.
It happens
Fucking
all the time.
every time. Then I
Classic.
mean, actually, though, we've had a big crop of the skinny players come through. You know, Donk,
Yes, but they've
Munacy.
always been skinny.
That's the thing, right? They didn't lose weight; they just were skinny to begin with, and like they don't have the no bitches to bitches factor going on there. You know what I mean? So, it was always bitches. So, anyhow, apart from that professional level analysis,
Oh yeah,
I think another team I really want to highlight, obviously I picked them to go through and you did too, is Complexity. I think I can't actually voice how disappointed I am with them as always. I think they're a team I love to hate in that sense, and we regularly hate on. But honestly, this opening two losses is pathetic. It's FlyQuest into Passion UA, and I know I picked Passion UA as my team to go through. But they were supposed to be on a borderline pick, and Complexity was supposed to be a reasonably confident pick. And look how it turned out. I mean, honestly, it's at the point where there's nothing left to say. I think for Complexity, we all know what needs to happen. Roster
yeah.
moves need to happen. They have done for
Elise needs
way
to be
too
saved.
long. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think Elige is staying, but the thing is, they've absolutely blown the opportunity and time frame where they could have got other players in because Elige was here, and I just can't see Elige staying on beyond the end of the season. I think beyond if he stays on beyond the end of this season, it's a disaster for him. Um, if Complexity don't make roster moves at the end of the season, it's a disaster for them. But it's probably already a disaster for them if Elige leaves. Because try making roster moves when you haven't got a fucking Elige on the team as a pull. Um, I don't know. It's really. I'm so disappointed. I mean, I get that they went through the last major. I get Complexity isn't necessarily a roster willing to make big moves for big money, but there were players available. There were quite a few actually. Wildcard has a player that they could have picked up. I forget the name of right now, but let me check. Um, like Jaber. Jaber's easily a player that they could have picked up. Obviously, they could have picked up Sonic as well, who was the who played with JT back in the day on that. I forget the name of that South African team back in the day now. Too hard to pull. But either way, he was already a known player from back then. I think he plays good roles quite well. I think he's been in the NA scene for quite a long time. I've always thought he was a player that could have played tier one, maybe in more of an anchor role or something like that, because honestly, he's played a lot of different roles in his time as well. Equally, could have been an aggressive rifler, and then you could have given Elige some more backseating. But just a very experienced player from South Africa, the best that they've ever produced, who's been in NA for a long time and never picked up for these kind of rosters. And then you have Jaber. I think that's an even more obvious one. He's still young. He's playing well on wildcard. You need some star power. I would change out Grim personally. I think Floppy plays the worst roles, but I could change out both. I could bring in Sonic and Jaber for those two. I think that would actually be better. You could have picked up Malbs, but he went to G2. Like they've missed on every single move, I think. And it's honestly appalling. Um, yeah,
They've hung on to these dead players as well, like
I mean, these
underperforming, not up to the level of the Liege, don't deserve to sit next to him.
look. I
Hung on
mean,
to them,
yeah.
ignored all these up and coming talent.
Floppy was a player I liked. I've always thought he played worse roles. For the stats he was putting up, but at the end of the day, though, like this team hasn't achieved anything. It's achieved absolutely nothing relative to expectations. It's probably sat at expectation for a long time, but then hasn't achieved ever above that, and has failed to achieve that several times also. Like, where's the upside on this team? Like, you have several young players that have shown the breadth of their capability. I'm not expecting Grim to perform more. I'm not expecting Floppy to really turn it around. I'm not expecting Halzerk to get any better. I think they're all kind of capped out players. I thought, Halzerk was showing better signs earlier in the year, but now he just looks flat as always. And I never thought he had that much flair to his game anyway. Where's the upside? There's so many players you could be out there taking up right now. CS is flush for talent, and you have this washed up old lineup like and Elige, who just still happens to be one of the best riflers in the world and could easily play a tier one level. So
For my money, the
honestly,
best North American player.
he is in history. That's no doubt. Even currently, it's very much like him and Twists are still the names. I really wonder if they'd never split how that could have gone, because I think they were always really complementary figures. Then again, Twist probably never thinks that. But yeah, he won majors without him, so and Grand Slams
Liege might.
again. I mean, Elige is definitely thinking about that. Elige is definitely thinking about that. But look, I think this is you know, it's a disaster lineup. It's a disaster performance. I hope it actually causes them to have to change. If they stick with it, it's a disaster. And if Elige goes, it's even more of a disaster. You had all this time. You could have got better talent to cycle in to give Elige to give a chance of Elige staying because your results are good enough. You failed to do that. I expect him to leave. Um,
Yeah, I obviously chose them to go through. They were one of my first teams that I put. I didn't put them in the 3-0 because I know this team. I know that they're not going to get through clean. There's no
no,
way. Um, but even saying that, they still have massively, massively disappointed me.
yeah,
And so far, from what I'm seeing, the only upside would be right now. I'm winning either way, I think, because if they make a miracle comeback and come through the hard way, the long way, and qualify for the major, I get my point, I get my coin, I continue on. I'm having a good time. Great. I love Elige. I'm a big fan of him.
yeah.
Ever since I played a CS game with him back in like 2018
I'm sure he
when he was
remembers
just
it, mate. He thinks
yeah
about it every day. I'm sure.
every day right before the like this is what he's thinking of. He's wishing that he could have me. Um,
He's wishing for anyone else, mate. Honestly.
yeah, when he was randomly in my just randomly in the comp game back in 2018. Um, and oh, I love him so much. And for me, either way, I'm winning right now because they qualify or they bomb out. And honestly, if this is the result, or if this does cause this team to break up and Elige to actually get on a functioning team that he deserves to be on, I'm gonna be happy about that
Yeah.
because I really want this boy to succeed and he deserves it.
He definitely does. I mean, yeah, he's so overqualified for this team. It's ridiculous. It has been the case for like the whole of last year. Um, Yeah, I don't know. For me, there's a real chance they come back and 3-2 this at the end of the day. Um, Sorry, Cam's doing some weird shit, but I can't really do much about it. Look, there's a real chance they come through still. Best of threes, they should be a better team than a lot of these lower ranked teams. They haven't been playing like it recently, but I actually low key think that might be the worst thing that could happen to them. If they really believe that anyone in this team has a real lifeline to stay, I don't see it. Maybe the only one I could give a pass to is JT. I think he calls okay. He calls probably above average in Tier 1 CS, but you don't have the pieces to make that player work right now, or that team work. So if they make it through, it could be. I would guess it's a bit like, to me that's a bit underwhelming. Like this roster so badly needs change. It's outrageous if they still get to pass through. Um, it's a bit insulting almost, but I just hope Lee's just gone. To be honest, Complexity don't deserve him. They haven't really played, or you know, they haven't tried to be a team that's worthy of his play right now. They haven't even attempted to make him comfortable and put him in the best. Like they have made him comfortable and put him in the best positions, but not in terms of picking up players that can allow him to win without just going insane himself. So at the end of the day, I think it's more than their time to end this.
Yeah, and they've obviously got their match against Imperial later on. Fingers crossed they take that. I think that they should. Imperial, a lot of people had those for their 0-3s. They were a pretty underwhelming team, and they're currently only win. Yeah, they're 0-2s right now, but I don't think they made it through the RMR that cleanly.
No, no, they definitely
Um,
didn't.
and so hopefully Complexity can take that out. I almost put them in my 0-3 instead of a wild card. Really wishing I did that now.
Yeah, that would have been a great one now. That would have been a great one. The thing is that,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I just know that if any of these series in the next three that they need to qualify go to the third map and it gets close, they will lose. Like, they don't have any potential in, like, clutch. Like, I think that's one of the things that makes this even more depressing to me is, like, they're almost the team you need to come out hot from the beginning, because I have no belief in their clutch. Like they look like a very mentally fragile team. Like every close game I can ever think of, I just feel like they lose it. Um,
yeah,
so
that whole team's mental is weak. Halzerg's mental is super fucking weak. He
yeah,
doesn't deserve to have like be that frustrated.
he gets frustrated about nothing. To be honest,
Yeah, like he'll take a shit peek, die to a shit angle that he shouldn't have taken, and then he'll slam his desk over it.
yeah.
And then he's got Elige sitting next to him, just being like, "What the fuck? Why'd you do that?" Like,
I don't
like
know.
Elige will go for like a Elige will put like the team on his back and go for a big play, and it won't pay off, and he gets frustrated too. And I can't even blame him for getting frustrated because look at the people that he's sitting next to. Like, there's nothing he can do.
I mean, the thing is, he plays at like 120%, and then they still lose like some
It's
close
ridiculous.
bullshit. So, yeah, we've talked enough about Complexity. I think we knew what we were expecting with them. Um, Obviously, this is a team that I've picked to go 0-3, but I'd like to highlight Rare Atom here. Obviously, we didn't do a major RMR preview, but to me, that was actually a really impressive like team to come through. Um, in that like Asian qualifier, I actually had the Tyloo roster over them in the RMR. I think potentially it was the more exciting roster to see if at this major. That's kind of the team with a lot of the Chinese young stars on it right now, and probably the team that has more future potential. But I don't dislike the storyline of Rare Atom. It's a lot of the OG Chinese players coming through again, experience winning it out in the end, it seems. And despite the fact that they're likely going 0-3 here, I think it's a good run. I think it's great for them, great for their org. Great to have a bit of Chinese representation. Just a shame they couldn't make it deeper into the tournament, to be honest. I guess the Chinese crowd will get to see a little bit of them. I think with Tyloo in the equation, there was a better chance they could have made it through. Just much better star power, I think. Which I ultimately wouldn't have picked them to go through either. Um, like, unfortunately, their roster is very skilled, but not very consistent. They're very much like Mongols without the team strategy and the like deeper understanding of European meta. And I think, to be honest, in a tournament like this, that's just likely to get exposed. But I think they had the better shot. They had the better punter's chance. Sorry. Um, Rare Atom don't really have that, but they have much more experience. They've played against EU opposition a lot more. Not really showing it, particularly here, but perhaps. But just very impressed that they made it through, nonetheless, and it's a cool storyline for them. Um, in a similar vein, I think this is Mongol's time to shine. Um, I think they've had a great time so far. They're very much, I think, a favorite to go through 3-0. Obviously, I've picked them that way. But this is also the first Asian major, and I'm glad that probably the best Asian team we've ever had in CS:GO/2. I won't go back to 1.6 because there were some Korean teams back then that were genuine. But in terms of CS:GO and 2, I think they are the best Asian team we've ever had. They've definitely had the best game, maybe not even the most skilled players, but I would argue their players are pretty skilled, but just a nice, coherent game. They play a good style of Counter-Strike with a lot of logical sense, and seem well adapted to the European meta these days. So I think it's great that at the first Asian major we'll get an Asian team that is genuinely decent and competitive in tier one. Unfortunately, it being a Mongolian team instead of a Chinese team, I wonder how well that will actually translate in terms of excitement in the storyline. I mean, I'm not sure Chinese people is particularly going to be cheering for a Mongolian team. They might cheer for them over the other teams, but then again, I think a lot of the European brands are quite famous, popular in China. So I'm interested. I would like to see a big uptick in Chinese like interest in this game from off the back of this major. We'll see if that's actually likely to happen, but I think that would develop the scene very quickly. I think there's so much potential talent out there that is unexplored, and I'd love to see a different, you know, style of CS grow up in a different region, you know, because I think variety is the spice of competition internationally, and we're lacking a major region in the world in that sense. But yeah, anyway, that's a more general topic on that sense, and maybe a personal bias as well.
I'd
Um,
also I'd also say like the Chinese fans, they love stars, you know?
yeah, they do.
And based off what I've seen from like the crowds at the tournament so far, like G2 aren't even in the tournament yet, and I'm seeing G2 signs in the fucking stands. And also my classes that I teach, they're all Chinese students,
Yeah.
and anyone that knows anything about CS in those classes, and a lot of them do actually, um, and they are all G2 fans, which is fantastic for me. I teach two classes full of G2 fans,
Come
and
on
it's
now.
just great.
Yeah, I mean,
Every time they have a good game, we come in. I'm like, "Hey, you see the game last night?" It's
the
just
fucking
fantastic.
nerd version of "Did you see the game last night?"
Yeah.
Did you see the
Um.
G2 match in CS
Yeah.
last night?
I was
Yeah.
giving a class. I was I was doing the other day, giving an exam, so I couldn't really like interact with the students. So I was sat at my desk just watching the G2 3D Max game. And then once they're done with their test, one of the students like started talking to me about it, and they were also frustrated with G2's performance in that game. And they were like, "What's going on with Monacy? What's going on?" Just
Yeah, I mean, okay, this is my secret prediction. If G2 win the major, um, Munacy. Okay, it was rumored that Munacy's girlfriend cheated on him. Okay, it's a rumor. I'd like to pretend I'm above going for rumors, but that was something I heard online. And my prediction is, if he MVPs out of his mind at this major, he should. It's because of her. You know what I mean? Like, ever since he broke up with that girl who cheated on him, he's been playing some fuck you Counter Strike, and he's always done that. But it's been particularly fuck you Counter Strike. Like, to me, that win at I think it was Blast, right? The most recent
yeah,
Blast tournament.
World Finals, yeah.
World Finals, yeah. He was out of control. Like, honestly, he was a terror to play. G2 didn't even look that good without him. Like, I remember that Vitality series, just the amount of times, I'm just watching the game. I'm like, please stop. He's like, no, here's an ace. Here's a 4K. Let me just 1v3 this scenario. Like, just outrageous shit. So I don't know. I think he's on some Sigma male grind set right now. Like he's got hurt, but he's hitting shots twice as fast with twice as much ferocity now, and that's my that's my underground pick for MVP of the major. Um, if he can turn the form around, I'm also me a bet hedger 9,000 over here. I could see a real world where Ziwu can claim the throne here. Still, I know that's crazy. I think a lot of people may end up still wanting Monacy to go through, and I respect that decision entirely. But I could see a world if he can MVP out this major and win it. I think it could be enough. Like it's Cologne, it's the major, it's consistent top fours throughout the year. I think that's still a very good record. Like I think it's arguable to the records of both Monacy and Donk. Um, I'd say Donk has been hurt by Spirit, personally, in my opinion. Like, Spirit hasn't been good enough relative to him for him to have as many deep runs in the latter half of the season. And I think Monacy's kind of been hampered all year, but has basically soloed his team to the fucking wins that they've got. So in that sense, like when you think back, Monacy is the biggest reason that G2's anywhere this year. And they did win what is it, 3 tournaments now this year, I think.
Believe so, yeah.
So
If you're counting the one in Dallas.
I am counting the one at Dallas. That was
Yeah,
on his
that's
back as
yeah.
well, quite frankly. So and against Vitality in the final. Damn
Stupid
you,
against.
Monacy. But I at the end of the day, I think to me, Monacy has the best run at number one. I think if none of the three win this major, of the trifecta win this major, I think Monacy takes it. His consistency over the years has been better, and I think his individual peaks. I mean, obviously, Donk had the highest peak this year, but I think Monacy has peaked the most times this year, and also just like his team looks so tactically flat. Like when they win, you just can't believe it's anything but him. Ziwu maybe has the weakest claim up until now. He's had really consistent showings this year, like top fours constantly. Like obviously they won Cologne. I would attribute that largely to him. Um, but just not enough trophies, and his team is very strong. So you'd expect some trophies. Again, if he MVPs the major, we can talk. But Donk probably has the middle claim for me. I think the thing about Donk's claim is like he's the least likely to probably make number one for me. He's had a really amazing year, and in other years with a different team, he probably could have been number one. But overall, I think just the results have kind of let them down. Like I haven't seen them win enough tier one lands, and they won one of his best performance ever in history of any player, which was amazing. But at the same time, it was their first tournament. It was a really good run of teams, but it's early CS2. Like I'm not as confident that that is enough, And then beyond that, I think they're just lacking trophies. They had that other trophy where they took a trophy as well later on, but since then, like since the player break, I don't think they've taken any trophies. Um, Maybe one. I'm trying to remember, but I don't think so. And in that sense, I think Donk's got the weakest claim. You could make claims for role and things like that because I think aggressive rifler is much more difficult to get frags on. But I tend to value closing better than opening, as much as that's weird. But like in CS, I think when you close the round, you win it. But when you open the round, you likely win it, but you haven't won. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like that subtle difference makes a player like Monacy more attractive because he full on binary wins you the round.
He's putting the numbers on the board,
Right.
like directly.
But he's also
Whereas he's
clutching the situations
yeah,
himself
exactly.
to get
But
you the round. Yeah.
after he does what he does, the number changes.
That's what I mean. And sometimes it doesn't for Donk. And that's the thing. Like, that's why I say Donk has kind of been hampered by his own team there because I think if they'd won more, it's super impressive. And he would be doing it from such a weird role that we haven't really seen, I think, ever really. Like, aggressive rifler. I mean, maybe Olofmeister was the last time I've seen an aggressive rifler really fight for number one. Because I think
That was a fucking
Coldzera's
long time.
very long time ago. Coldzera's very clutch. Get Right was very clutch. Forest was obviously fighting, but Get Right was obviously better. Olofmeister was very like playmakery, but he wasn't really an opening player. He's more of like Sometimes he's second AWPs. He goes for a lot of openings. He goes for a lot of playmakes, but there's sometimes mid-round
Yeah.
playmaking. It's not necessarily always open playmaking. In fact, JW would often be the one going for open playmakes. So it's
Cold,
like in that sense,
Cold
like
Zero also used to open a lot as well.
Cold Zero helped a lot, yeah, but he's not even remotely the same style in that sense. So I think like maybe Fur was also another one that was contentious for number one, but we've never really seen a
None
player
of these
like
people
Donk.
come close.
No, and we just haven't seen a player that's done it like Donk has. But I just don't. I think he's slightly short this year. I think Spirit maybe need one more move, one more experienced vet on their team. Maybe out for Magix. Just put as an experienced vet able to just play roles a lot more. Role play. Um. Anyhow, that's my highlight of the number one conversation and how it relates to this major. Any of them could get it with the major win, in my opinion. I think Muncie is the most likely to get it without it. Um, but yeah, I think in terms of the number one conversation, that's sort of where I'm at with it. What do you think? I mean, I imagine Muncie's a firm number one for you right now.
Oh yeah, Montese's been number one since before the conversation started for
He
me. um,
was number one in
but yeah,
January.
like,
Yeah.
and I also think like obviously if none of the three get it, I think he is just in the first place right
Yeah,
now currently.
I'd agree with
So
that.
if none of them get it, I don't think that really shuffles it around that much. So therefore, Mondesi would just take it. But I think there is a chance for Zaiwu and Donk if they do win this tournament in dominant fashion, and Mondesi, if he plays the way he did at the RMR, I can have that conversation. But I don't think he's going to play the way that he did at the RMR again.
I don't think so either. I think
I don't think
Muncie
that's
of
possible.
the three, I think Muncie lives up to the big moment the best. It's
Mhm.
part of what makes him like the most appealing, and I think it makes him the easiest number one to pick for the general fan because it's like every time the game gets more important, he's delivering more. Like Zyro's like the opposite, he delivers like the most unbelievable stats you've ever seen in games that don't matter. And then
Yeah,
he gets to like these like important games at the end and he's like half as good, And in that sense,
Mondesi
like
scales up.
right, and I think in that sense, Zyro's the more like it's hard to pick him. I think from a viewer point of view, a viewer entertainment point of view, because Munassi's by miles the more entertaining player in that sense. Like
He's electric.
he's electric and he's got that like killer instinct where he's like twice as good in the playoff game and like half as good in the group stage. Zywo's kind of got the opposite problem. It frustrates me so much because to me, like Zaiwu has the best potential of the three. Like maybe you could argue Donk, he's so young. But like to me, like the thing he's missing is like so hard to get is the problem. But at the same time, like his potential is unbelievable. Like he's so good at like rinsing tier one rosters and tier one teams in low pressure situations. If you can ever get that around, he could just be unstoppable. Like that's really the perspective I have on him, and I think he must be one of the most frustrating players to play against because I don't like it's not even like you're getting in his head or like things like that. He's just kind of like pretty, like nothing
Oh,
showing
he's
and
chill.
yeah, and he's just playing his game, right? But somehow it doesn't translate up into these big moments and he doesn't have that killer instinct to like dive. This is the moment I need to make the play. This is the moment that I have to just fuck the plan and just make my own plan. And Modesty has no problem breaking out that mold. He's sticking to the plan, but then he realizes they're not winning the game if he sticks to the plan, and he's out of the plan immediately doing his own thing. And it's a simple esque quality. Um, I think Monacy's even better at it than Simple in a way because I think Simple maybe did it too much for like he's giving up on the team aspect too early almost. But like Monacy generally, I mean, I would say the one example I have against it was ESWC. I think he played too much for himself in that game against Navi, and that kind of was a deciding factor against them because he kind of overplayed his hand and lost a lot of duels.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, like in general, his balance of going for the selfish play versus the team play aspect is really good and like exactly what you want from a star. Um,
He's
Donk
just the
has all the
perfect
time
player.
in the world to get back to get his number one at some point, and I
He
could
doesn't need it in the first year.
he doesn't have to have it now, yeah, and I think he will at some point um be going for it. He just needs a better team, and he's probably gonna have a much better run. His team's so inexperienced still.
Honestly, is just the perfect player in every aspect, though. Like even outside of the game,
He's very good.
like
He's very good.
his every interview he gives is perfect. It's like someone wrote a script for him, and he's
Yeah.
just like doing it in his second language off the dome. Like, um, he he's just a nice guy. It seems like he's always taking photos. He's like very amenable. I've never heard someone say a bad word about him. Like obviously a lot of bad words were said about Simple.
Yeah.
None of those clips
A
of
lot of them coming from his
yeah.
own mouth, quite frankly.
Mhm. But and then also just like he is just as exactly what you said. He scales up. So like I think we're not going to see the same RMR performance that we had. One because he won't be playing from a hotel room and he'll have people in front of him and he actually has to play off the crowd because there are crowds at every one of these games from here on out now. And I think Mondesi will just play up to that. And honestly, the Chinese, they fucking love Mondesi. And when Mondesi's got the crowd on his side, he plays 10 times better.
Yeah. I'd say like it's interesting. Like I think Vitality and G2 have a similar problem here, which I'd like to highlight in this tournament, which is I don't understand like publicizing the Nico is going move, in the way that they did it. Like I think they wanted to acknowledge it, but I think the way that they've done it has been a bit of a nightmare. And I think if anything, like it could affect the mental of the team, is what I mean. Like like they revealed it in like from the CEO in like French circles through I think Nell was the one who broke that. And like this has been talked about already for sure, but at the same time, like the CEO is almost like fobbing off Nico, like, yeah, I think Malbs can replace this guy. Like anyone in TS could replace Nico, barring like Donk. Like there's no player that's even remotely got like the potential that you'd say he can replace Nico. That no one's shown that level, is what I mean. Yeah. Donk is probably the only one that you could say was close. Because like think about it, since Nico turned up, he was always like one of the best players in the absolute world. Like Malbs is good, he's very good. Let me put it that way, but he is not necessarily trending or tracking to be Nico right now. Like I would argue he's more tracking to be like maybe Fur or something, very skilled. But you don't know he's going to be good for 8 years. He might just be a 2 or 3 year guy, like Fur was. I mean, actually, Fur had pretty good longevity, but just a much lower level teams. But in general, I think you can't say anyone's going to be like Nico. And why would you put those kind of resentful thoughts into a guy like Nico's head, who's been playing for G2 for years? He hasn't achieved what he wanted to.
Oh,
But sorry, say again.
I don't know if that would really produce resentful thoughts. I think this Nico, maybe like earlier Nico might take offense to that, but I think this Nico is like, I think he's quite mature now. Like, I don't think that this news has really damaged the team in that way. I think if anything, it takes a lot of the pressure off the team, and the pressure is one of the main things that this team struggles with.
Yeah.
So it's like it's the last dance. I think they're just gonna try and have fun with it almost. Obviously, they want to win. They'll do their best to possibly win. But I think like a lot of players when they're leaving a team might throw the towel in and might like lose a bit of motivation because they know that they're not going to work with this team anymore. Why would they put effort into it? Why would they try and fix this team if they're leaving? Whereas I think Nico is the perfect player for this to happen to, really, because I think under any situation, Nico wants to win, and he will try his best to bring up the people around him, give them instruction. If he doesn't like, he can be a perfect secondary caller. Like, I think he is the ideal player for this to happen to because he just will not give up,
I
and I
mean,
don't
I
think
get that.
G2
Like,
is gonna.
he's obviously still got a lot to play for in his career, and you get the sense from him that he thinks that way too. Like, he's not happy enough with the achievements he's had in his career. He definitely still wants more, and he has an opportunity here to do it. So I don't doubt he's playing seriously and taking it all very seriously. I'm just criticizing the general move from G2 to publicize it in the way that they did and to aim critique
Yeah,
at Nico in any way. Because first of all, like I don't know that he's not going to be affected by it either. He seems like a guy who, to me, with a big ego, in a good way, but a big ego who wants and deserves respect, quite frankly. You know what I mean? I don't think he's a guy who's gonna take disrespect very cleanly, very calmly overall. I mean, he might be able to keep it out of his head here, and he there's many reasons why it maybe won't affect him, but it's not impossible to me that there's a world where it does get in his head and he's a bit pissed off about that. And like, why the fuck would you do that to a team that is like top three in the world and easily in contention to win this major? That's my problem with that. And if it does end up affecting him at all and he has a rougher time here, I'm gonna be pissed because why the hell did you do that? It's a similar thing with Vitality. I don't know why there's a lot of rumors going around that Vitality are making moves now. Why is this coming out at this time in the major? Like, if you want to get ahead for moves, I understand that if you're not a team that can fucking win the major, like if you can win the major, why are you doing like this kind of weird, behind the scenes shit that's getting out in rumors, that's
Yeah.
like getting on your
Vitality
teammates?
stuff confuses me more.
Yeah, because like, at the end of the day, like you have a very good chance to win here. And, you know, am I supposed to believe that if they won that you just change the lineup as well? Am I, why, what are the fucking players going to be thinking about in these games?
Yeah.
Like careers are on the line potentially. Like, I don't know. To me, it's a weird move. Like you just save it for after the major when you've won or not won, and not put loads of extra pressure on these players that they maybe have to win now to be able to stay, or maybe it doesn't even matter anymore. I don't know. To me, it's how this is happening with the teams that are likely to win the major. Sorry, it comes across as like it's just such a weird move. It's like you
Yeah.
to affect your chances of winning a major. Such a hard achievement in the modern day of CS is in any way, it just feels absolutely stupid. I trust
Yep.
that Vitality are professionals and can deal with this kind of stuff, and they do seem like a team of professional kind of mindsets. So I don't doubt that they can maybe, this won't affect them as well, like in a similar vein to what you were saying with Nico, but maybe slightly different. Um, but again, what were you tempting fate for? Just
Yeah.
just
I
just
don't
roll it.
understand the Vitality ones even more because like the Nico one, that's been known for a while. Like that wasn't really new information. When the CEO came out, he was more from what I understood, rather than like confirming rumors, he was more just like almost defending the team, saying like we still believe in this roster. We don't think we're gonna go to shit if Nico leaves, is more
Yeah,
the idea.
which you will,
And
but
like
all right.
and like I kind of believe him on that. I don't think they're gonna be as good. I don't like obviously Nico is not like you
Depends on the
can't replace
moves.
Nico. But like in the current day and age, I don't think you necessarily need him to win the odd tournament. I don't like obviously it's a downgrade. Anyone's going to be a downgrade from Nico. But if they can sell him, get a shit ton of money because they're selling him to like the richest organization in the world, they're going to get a shit ton of money for that. If they can take that money and reinvest it into maybe a better IGL and a better potentially replace Hunter, I think honestly that would be a replacement for Nico. Obviously, you can keep Hunter if you want, maybe not. But I think that they could rebuild and have a solid, strong team because I don't think star power necessarily gives you errors anymore in the same way that it used to be able to in like the MIBR days.
Well, I mean, actually, to highlight some interesting moves potentially. I mean, first of all, I think you are in the shit unless you make some absolutely banger roster moves. First things first, like if you're G2, like if you lose Munacy, it's already over. So Munacy has to stay if you
I
want to
think
be competitive.
I think in that statement he said that Mondesi's not going.
Yeah, but like, did he though? Like, I don't know if he really did. I
He
felt
just has a
like
contract for another year.
he has a contract for a year. That's basically what we learned from that. But a contract for a year, like, doesn't mean that much if Falcons come with like 3 or 4 million, does it?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I could see that maybe being like bait to get Falcons to pay up. But anyway, look, if you lose Munacy, it's over. First of all, right? So let's assume that you don't lose Munacy because that's no fun in the conversation. Next, you have to make some good roster moves, and I think you minimum need like 2 roster moves, right? So Nico's out, and I think Snacks has to be out, and I think you bring in 2 players minimum to get the team to the level it's at now. I think you need 2 roster moves, right? So presuming that you need 2 roster moves, Okay, I think there's some really great options for roster moves. Like, obviously, Yimpat would be a great pickup. Like, they lack a
Has to pick
really
up. He's my number one pickup.
definitely. I mean, I think they lack a really strong anchor player. Like, to me, it's they've kind of put Malbs in some of those roles at the moment on CT, but he's obviously not built for it, and you wouldn't go ahead with him in those roles. You'd definitely switch him out for more proactive roles on CT, and probably more proactive roles on T. But I think he has quite a few of those already on T.
On T
So
side, definitely.
yeah, but so you want a passive style rifler, right? And Yimpat's probably the best available in that regard. Debatably, if like a phase makes moves and Rops is gone, for instance, that would be a great pickup. I think who else could fit this role? I mean, I think Elige would have done in the past, but actually I think his aggressive play has been better lately. So I actually think he could role clash a little bit with Malbs, but he has a lot of experience and could probably play the role really well. I definitely think that's an option. And then for me, the other one is if Vitality are making a move, Spinks is a really good candidate for this kind of position, and I think it would be a great pairing because one of the problems I think I have in Vitality is I don't see any player on there that's like really known to be clutch. You know, like they have players that can win clutches, but they're not like scary players to play in the clutch. You know what I mean? Like they're scary players in general, not because they're in a clutch that they're scary. It's not a strength of theirs, you know? So Spinks is kind of like that for me. Zywu's kind of like that for me. And then Flames is a massively aggressive opener. Like Mezzi's somewhat clutch, but then also doesn't produce massive numbers and is kind of in a gimped role in that sense. So you're not expecting him to. So for me, like Spinks joining G2 would be a great pickup because I think Munacy has that half of the equation on lock. You know, if you need a player that's good in the fucking clutch, it's that guy. So in that sense, like I like the balance of what you're getting out of the players there as well. So I think those are like the obvious contenders for a passive rifling slot on that team. I don't know who else I'd already put in contention, who is likely to be available. And then for me, the other role that you're looking to fill is IGL. So I think the most obvious is Sui from
That would be amazing.
yeah, from Mao's obviously, but it's hard to know whether you'll get that. I've heard rumors that Falcons might go for that, and if Falcons go for that, I don't think Snappy's a bad pickup either. Actually, I think he's been having a terrible time this year, but if he moved to a roster like G2, I mean, maybe they wouldn't consider picking him up because of the results, but I don't think he necessarily had a team on Falcons that had any real star power on it, and I'd like to see him have another chance at a top tier roster, to be honest. Beyond that, like I mean, Apex debatably was maybe getting dropped from Vitality. I think he'd be a great pickup here as well. I don't necessarily love his emotional style calling all the time, but I do still think he could be good on this team. It's unlikely him and Spinks would go to the same team, though, I will point out, because from what I understand, or it's kind of insinuated, part of the problem that Spinks has is with maybe Apex. So, from that side, that's probably less likely. There's also a universe where Karrigan's out of phase, so you've got to at least think about it. If Karrigan could get a shot with Munacy, I'd love to see it. So I think maybe those are my high tier moves. I'd say. I think all of them have a lot of potential upside. I'm trying to think. There might be more for the
Yeah.
IGL slot.
And I think if they get on any of those, like what I was saying about they're not ruined, is if they get any of those, then they're in a decent position. They're in a similar position to what like Vitality is now.
Two things. Firstly, they require both moves to go through. Okay, one move and one mid move wouldn't be good enough. That's first of all. I think really unlikely that that's good enough. Um, to be at least the level that they are now. Second of all, you could make both moves and it could look really good on paper, and this could all still go to shit. And I've seen it with G2 too many times where they made a good on paper roster move that you thought was going to improve the team, and
Valid.
they look a bit wishy washy or just super firepower one day, nothing the next. So I think there's still like to me it's not a done deal. I have like Munacy will give this team a chance no matter what if he's there. Malbs also looks like a player that's trending up, and I have a lot of excitement to see what he has to produce for us in the future. But there's no guarantees in making moves in tier one Counter Strike. I'd argue Vitality is a similar thing for me. It's like to me that is an even weirder move. Like they're even less obviously a flawed team, and they're a consistent top four team at like every tournament they attend, pretty much. So the roster move is even more alarming for me for them because again, like you don't always get better if you make a roster move. You know, I could see a world where Vitality get worse because I think in terms of the team that they are, they're really fucking good and um have a chance to win all these things. So of the Vitality move, I'm even less confident about. Like, first of all, who the fuck do you replace Spinks with if he's actually going? Like, I think there's so few riflers that can replace
Yeah.
him. You're not getting Nico, so there's one off the list. Like, I don't know, maybe you Xantaras would be a cool pickup, but I don't think you need him. You got Flames. Like, I think they kind of cover the same area. He would still be a great pickup if you could get him. What Elige? He's a good pickup. I don't think he's even as good as Spinks. Like, I think he's great, but I don't think he's as good as Spinks. One thing I will say is I think he's got way more clutch factor than a guy like Spinks. So maybe that makes up for it in some sense. And I think it's a thing that Vitality lack right now, but I don't think that would be a fantastic move. I think Yimpat would be a really good move, personally, because I think he's a passive guy. He's also quite a clutch player, in my opinion. And I think it just balances out the team. I think it allows Zywoo to maybe be more aggressive than we've been seeing lately as well. So that would be a cool move. Like, Exertion wouldn't be a terrible pickup, but I kind of think you still got Flames, and I think that is kind of the role he's going for. I don't know. The list of players you could go for is quite short. Like a Rops, if he gets drops from FaZe, would be a good pickup. Maybe a Twists if you wanted to bring him in. Also potentially for the IGL slot if you're actually getting rid of Apex. And again, who do you replace Apex with? I thought he was doing a really good job in this Vitality most of the time. Actually, I think it's unfortunate they've had some like semifinals um, disappearances maybe, and he's been conspicuous in those for not necessarily calling the best game. But his overall day-to-day game looked amazing. I think Vitality are one of the hardest teams in the world to play against. They have no bad matchups against like any of the top teams. Like they don't get consistently beaten by one team all the time. Closest you could come is like a G2 maybe, and G2 have lost plenty of times to Vitality in big series as well. Like um so I don't know. Like to me, the Vitality thing is like how the chance that you downgrade the roster, losing Spinks and Apex feels really high to me, and I don't know. It could be a really terrible time to be a Vitality fan, to be honest. Um, yeah, I mean that's a couple of the big highlights for me in terms of like potential roster moves that are coming up of teams that obviously we are more passionate than the rest about. Let's say. Um, I think FaZe maybe is one I'd be a little bit interested to talking about. I don't know. What do you think?
I think they're in a bad place right now. They obviously made it through. They're in the tournament, but I don't think they're going to make it super deep. Um, it seems like a lot of the players have kind of like lost the belief in their team almost. Like it's almost like they've lost the phase factor. Like the thing that made them phase is no longer there, and I can't even really find the weak link. Really, like it just doesn't
Yeah,
seem like this team is meshing anymore. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to phase after this tournament, but there's no way
definitely.
that all five is staying together.
I mean, it seems very unlikely that that's the case, right? I mean, first thing I'd like to highlight is this. I know this is a stat I brought up to you at the time, but until I think it was Blast, I think it was World Final, but it may have been the one before that, which was what is that like Fall Final, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, until one of those two, I forget which Blast, like FaZe hadn't beaten like Mouse, Navi, G2, Vitality in a series since like March from
Mm.
before that point. It was like 7 straight months of not beating any of the teams that we would consider like the real best, the S tier elite teams. So like for me, that's a really bad sign. Like first of all, like it looks like FaZe to me in that sense is really consistent. They consistently beat the worst team, but they consistently lose to the better team, which is a really bad place to find yourself. Like I think with a like a lineup of that caliber, like obviously it's not acceptable for them because of the stage of their careers that they're at. But additionally, it's just I think the most frustrating place to be because you're better than the rest, but you're not good enough to be elite. And even sometimes they would lose to like not very good teams. Like I think it was Saw who beat them at Cologne, was it?
Yes.
And that was a really big loss. Like to be honest, you thought that was a tournament where you thought they were coming back. They had some
Yeah.
big game against Liquid coming back like 12-0 to win the game or 11-0 to win the game. And then they fucking get thrown out by a saw. Like obviously playing a fantastic tournament, but what the hell is that? And in general, I'd say there's been multiple times where there's kind of been these like false alerts where you feel like FaZe is back. You watch some crazy game that they win third, or to get out of the groups. And they do it in FaZe fashion for like a throwback to the old days. Rops has a banger map, and then you're like, fuck, they're back. Like, let's see what they can do in the playoffs. And then consistently in the playoffs, they just get beat out first round, just slammed down by a bigger team that you think they should have a chance against, and they usually play close against, but they just lose every time. And it just feels like, as you say, they're not FaZe. FaZe is known for being the team that you can never put away. The ultimate clutch team, the ultimate it's never over type of team. But sometimes it does feel like it's over, and sometimes they don't feel like they were even in the game to begin with. And honestly, I'd say it's really hard to point at any particular player. Like as you say, the interesting thing about FaZe is arguably every single player could be removed because none of them have been good enough and none of them have been bad enough. So they all sit in this middle area where they most of them are like, they have a good day and you think like you can't possibly remove this guy, and then they have a bad day and then you think, oh fuck, maybe we do have to remove him. And I think to me, like maybe the two players I'd say are like the most replaceable for FaZe is probably Brokey and Rain right now for me. But like even that's like so difficult,
Yeah.
like Brokey is such like an X factor on that team. Like if he's having a sick game, I feel like they're such a hard team to put away. I think he's a big part of what allows them to do crazy comebacks because he's very like
He's a fearless player.
he's a fearless player. He doesn't play like a standard AWPing style, and he has a lot of potential in clutches to win. So in that sense, he has a lot of clutch factor. And then Rain is like, he's like an older guy, but his aim is just phenomenal when it's on, and he's playing like all the shit roles of the team. Like I would say, like he's still like overperforming relative to expectation of who he is and his age and everything. So I find it such a fascinating team in that who do you even make the change? Like the only player you can't change is Frozen. That's basically it. Like everyone else is up for debate. I'd say, yeah, my two most replaceable is probably Brokey because there are better AWPers in the world that you could find more consistency with. Whether or not any are available for you to get is another thing. So I mean, maybe he's not as replaceable as I say he is, but I think he's like I don't think his ceiling is number one in the world at his role. So in that sense, he is more replaceable than someone like Rops and Frozen for me, who can do that in their role, and Carrigan, quite frankly. And then Rain also, I think, lacks the potential to be number one in his role, so is technically replaceable in that sense. But he's such I find it really hard to replace him. Like once in a while, he just has a huge game against like an S tier opponent, and you can just win. So
He also is just Mr. FaZe.
he is Mr. FaZe. I mean, the only one that's maybe more Mr. FaZe is Carrigan, but he's not even the real Mr. FaZe because Rain's been that way longer.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a really hard one for me. I think I'd be sad whatever happens actually because FaZe is like always been one of my favorite teams.
Yeah.
I've always loved Carrigan. But I think it's getting to that point where it's time. It's time to make some kind of move here. I just hope it isn't Carrigan, actually. That's the one move I hope it's not. To me, he's still got stuff left to show us. And honestly, like, I know you need a team full of stars to make it work for Carrigan, but I believe it still works.
Yeah.
And I just want to see a team that's more consistent on the firepower that can make up for it a little bit. Because I
Yeah.
just think on stage in a big situation he can still win. So yeah, interesting times coming up ahead for FaZe as well. And the only team that probably isn't making a roster move is Navi, regardless of the outcome of the major. Quite frankly, I think they've been really good all year. They're probably the team of the year. Um, Almost certainly are going to be the team of the year actually. And they've had a fantastic time of it. I'm looking to see more at this major, but somehow I'm picking against them. I'm not expecting them to win this major somehow. I think they're going to be one of the most studied teams, and I think I'm leaning towards it's going to be one of Vitality or G2 probably to me. And I'm
I'm really
also
hoping for that.
very biased to that, obviously. But yeah, I think for this stage of the major, that's probably all the things we have to highlight. We've talked about some more general stuff in the back as well, which I'm sure we'll go into more after the major concludes. We'll try and put out another video, I think, talking about the next stage of the major. Is there any
Yeah.
final predictions, matches you would like to talk about? Anything at all?
No, I think we've pretty much summarized it. I'm just really excited for the next elimination stage. I I just can't wait for that to come through.
Oh, it's
We get to
always,
see like my big teams play. Like I've
yeah,
been watching these games and I'm a lot more interested actually. This is my first time doing the pick'ems, so I actually care about these lower rank results.
right.
And it does make the games more interesting, but like I can't wait for this elimination stage to begin and actually
Yeah.
see the G2 Vitality Spirit phase, all
Oh, it's gonna be
these
exciting.
beautiful
Like
teams
whoever
play.
wins is gonna be a fucking huge storyline. Oh, sorry. The other interesting storyline for me is Mouse as well. Just quickly, obviously they're a team that's looking really likely to be picked apart. I think their only chance to really stay together is probably to win the major. I think that's probably it. Like I don't think the players are really happy with anything else. Maybe a final's good enough, but questionable really. I think all of these players are looking to try and do more with their careers at the point that they're at now. Um, and if that team blows up, I think we get such an interesting series of moves in the top five teams. I'm massively intrigued into who gets what and what happens. Um, and I'm sure they'll become very good regardless. But yeah, anyhow, I think we'll leave it there for today. I think that's been more than enough. Nice to be back, obviously. We'll try and do a bit more of this. We got, you know, just two or three more for the end of the major, and then we got a break over Christmas that, hopefully we can come refreshed with some hot takes into the new year and a bit more consistency, maybe.
Yeah,
But anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you indeed did, and if you made it to this section of the video, I'd ask maybe you could leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the classic YouTube shit. But I think it's 10 times more meaningful for us because we're really at the start. We don't
yeah.
have
We
many
don't have any of that.
fans. Yeah, we don't have any of that, right? And I think,
We
hopefully we're
need
putting a
taste.
product out here that people can enjoy. And if you did enjoy it, please help us out. But anyhow, we'll leave it here for now, and we'll be back with more predictions following up. Bye.
Bye.